This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside our Wednesday Wonder came the first time that we've seen each other in a couple weeks, Stephen.
I know.
You had like dentist duty or something 2 weeks ago. Was it
my son had an appointment, doctor's office.
A doctor's appointment, you know, and it was your turn on the honey-do list.
I was told my wife makes all the appointments.
Yes.
And so I get informed about them sometimes the day before. Mm-hmm. Now, she might disagree. She seemed to think that she informed me of it at an earlier time than that. But anyway, I was out, and then we had Thanksgiving. Paul, I know you got away a little bit for Thanksgiving, so that was good, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was great. We had a blast. Stephen, I'm going to tell you something. You've been married longer than I have. Mm-hmm. But here's what I found out. She probably did tell you. Here's the thing. We, as men, don't have the brain capacity to take this information in. Mm. You basically just need to tell us in a time before, or we need to give you access to our phone calendar. So it says, reminder, little one doctor's appointment,
right,
Wednesday at 1 o'clock.
Do you and Amanda have a shared calendar?
Not yet, but it's coming.
And we don't either. We made that admission at church recently, and people looked at us like that was a crazy thing. We probably should at this point, but yeah, that would most likely help. But I'm glad to be here, and I feel like I'm at like a congressional hearing or something with this seating set up.
Well, here's the thing. When we get the other desk over there fully set up, that's what I intend to have in here is those guys over there asking me questions about things I may have done wrong.
Right.
And then me saying, I choose not to comment at this time. Or my favorite one of all time was when Mark Zuckerberg was in front of Congress, one of the many times he's been in front of Congress, but one of the older senators who was like, nobody has to pay? You don't have to, like, how do you make any money on this? And he's like, Senator, we sell ads. And the guy was still like, oh. Like,
tell me more.
But I mean, like, he even had the look in his face of like, how does it work? How do the ads on the internet work? He's just like an ad, like in his brain, he's like, so somebody's got like a picture of a kid's birthday party, and then it's just on the internet of like, this picture brought to you by McDonald's. I'm loving it. Like, no, just.
We can get some pretty specific redirects at this point. Yeah, I feel like I'm doing like an ethics and podcasting hearing right now.
Yeah.
And Jack's going to ask me questions about, I don't really know what the questions would be, but.
Do you feel like it's all right just to sit there and speculate like you are? I mean,
do you think that's a
do you
safe
honestly
thing?
feel like that contributes to society in some positive way?
I choose not to comment.
And here's, I'll tell you, we get some good. There's some good hearings now because of the comedy of it and how dumb people on either side of these questions are, and particularly the politicians who. Like really, we're reading at a lower grade level than they were a generation ago. Our politicians. That's the best I can say. And
are you sure?
Reading at least one grade level lower, if not like a couple.
I think some of them have Wikipedia as their primary source for information, which so do I. But I'm not in Congress, so
yeah. But I do like if you go back, if you ever like watch the Watergate hearings or. RFK, like with the mob, like that was some stuff right there, man.
Yeah.
Like, when you're sitting there like, oh, there's a mobster we're going to call in front of Congress who's ordered the murders of a whole bunch of people, Momo Giancana. And it's like, I choose not to answer that on the grounds that might incriminate me over and over and over again. You'd be like, oh, wow, well, these guys are doing some work. Mm-hmm. That's something. And now it's like, sir, are you here to tell me that Instagram Reels are safe for our children? And you're like, I don't know.
Where is the TikTok information going?
Where is this going? Yeah, I mean, like that's what's going on. And then, there were people in the past that were, like finding out like, and why did you break into the Watergate Tower? It's like, oh, no. And
Now it's just like old dudes like, why does my wife see the scantily clad women on my FYP page? And how do I tell her that I was hacked?
Yeah. I admire the people who just say, I wasn't, it's just, no, I wasn't hacked. You got me.
You got me. Yeah, you got me.
I've got proclivities. So do you. Don't judge. All right, Stephen, there's a lot of college football stuff going on. First, we're not going to talk about the CFP just yet. This is breaking news today. I wasn't even planning on talking about it. I didn't even know it was in the water, as a matter of fact. But TCU is on the search for a new athletic director. Jeremiah Donati is on his way to South Carolina to be their new athletic director. And congratulations. I'm sure it's a nice pay bump, and it's in the SEC, so your life is going to be easier.
Right.
You don't have the same kind of scrutiny.
Yeah, you're not fighting for a life raft every day.
No, look, right now South Carolina might wind up in the playoff because they're in the SEC. Now, look, they had a really good season, especially by South Carolina standards, but 9-3 in the SEC, and you can be like, well, it's unfortunate that we got put behind two other SEC teams, one of which we beat, or whatever, but like they can do that all day long, right? And do that all day long in the SEC is where Jeremiah Donati's job now is if TCU got beat in the championship game, he had to spend, 24 hours going, well, that shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. We had 12-0 going in. We were 12-0.
Right.
Lost by a touchdown in overtime. We're 12-0, 12-0. Focus on that. Focus on that. Please don't put, don't put a 2-loss team in over us because we lost the championship game, and that worked. But now it's just like, well, whatever happens. I'm fine. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, it was a surprising move. Typically, you don't hear too much chatter about these things, at least with ADs, until they happen. But a chance to go to the SEC, I think it's a loss for TCU in the fact that Jeremiah seems to have really good feel for the way college football is moving and the way college athletics is moving, and understands the NIL space and is still very active in getting donations. They just are about to break ground on a human performance center that is, supposed to be state of the art, even more so than what they have now. So a chance for him to be in a place where he doesn't have to worry about the landscape of realignment anymore. And now a huge hire for TCU. I don't have a great feel of the names they'll look at. I know Drew Martin has been with Chris Del Conte at Texas for a while now. And before that, he was in Fort Worth, and he might be a name that they throw around. But a pretty big hire in the world now with everything that's going on around college football, and surprising that he took that job in 2017 after Chris Del Conte went to Texas. So he's been there almost 8 years now, pretty long tenure at that place, and moves on to Columbia, where he has a thriving football program at the moment and really good women's basketball program and a lot of things to work with. Yeah, no, it's good for him moving on and having a less stressful life. Yeah,
I mean, it's still pretty stressful
in some ways. Sure.
I mean, like as an SEC job goes, that one's pretty stressful. Like he has to sell it within the SEC a little bit more. When it comparing them to Ole Miss is like the thing, and of course, Lane Kiffin's been on a rampage about Ole Miss. Yeah,
Lane Kiffin's just like a college football Reddit poster, but he's a college football coach.
Yeah,
which I mean I can appreciate it, but he's just like taking screenshots, putting it on his Twitter page, breaking down strength of schedule.
Yeah,
it's pretty wild.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go through your non-con there schedule there, buddy. Let's go through that Wrath of the Titans thing that you went through.
How about just beat Kentucky and Florida?
Yeah.
Those seem like obtainable things that you could do. Could have done.
I get that wins have to matter and losses have the games have to matter. Where you lose me in this argument about strength of schedule is, Florida's a 7-5 team. Kentucky's 4-8.
Right.
So they have those losses there in that pocket. Alabama has losses to two different 6-6 teams. And that, putting them in this thing with, you got two losses to 6-6 teams, like that doesn't matter. But, oh, no, our 6-6 is better than somebody else's 8-4. No, it's not really. It's really not. I know that historically perhaps, but, once you're out of the once you're out of the 9-3, 8-4 range, to me, you're all the same level of average for along across the board. Like a 7-5 Big 12 team, a 7-5 ACC team, and a 7-5 Big 10 team, a 7-5 SEC team. That's the same. That's the same. The only thing that's going to determine those games are matchups that you would play.
Right.
And the hypothetical stuff has to go, but like that's where we are. We're in the hypothetical season. And we've got are you really telling me that if Ole Miss did this or that, like, yeah, I'm telling you that you don't know that. That's what I'm telling you is you don't know what would happen on any given year. And, when you've had opportunities to play Big 12 teams, Baylor beat Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl handily, and Gary Bohannon played his way off the roster.
Right.
Like, he played his way into the portal. I remember telling Jack after that game, I said, I think Gary Bohannon, at best, played his way into the tight end room. Like, that's what I thought.
Say that.
What?
He did, in fact, say that.
Yeah. And then eventually, he has the battle with Shapen. He transfers to USF. Like, he played so poorly in that game, and Baylor still won handily. So there are recent test cases, if you want to go back into history of, this was not Ole Miss is bummed to be in that bowl. They were fired up to be in it. And yeah, their quarterback, Matt Corral, got hurt like right off the bat, but Luke Altmaier has had a much better career at this point than Gary Bohannon has, and Gary was playing maybe his worst game in a win at Baylor at all. I mean, it was bad.
Well, and one thing that we've been saying consistently this year is it feels like the gap has shrunk. It feels like there's not a dominant team. There's not we'll see what happens with Oregon here over the next couple of weeks, but it's feasible that anybody is beatable, and we wouldn't always say that in college football. So I think the record really has to matter more, and why is a BYU behind a 3-loss Alabama? I know Alabama in the past, that cachet and that program, that means a lot, and they had the greatest coach of all time, but that's not the same Crimson Tide. Like, we've seen teams take it to them this year in a way that we hadn't seen in the past. And so this argument about, like, Vegas lines and, the middle of the SEC would destroy the middle of the Big 12. We don't know that. I mean, we can assume that. And I know, like, in BYU's case, the timing of the losses really hurt them. And they also lost to some teams that they shouldn't have, particularly Kansas. But, man, it's remarkable that even in a season, Paul, where it feels like parity's at an all-time high, there's still this kind of golden calf that's being put on the SEC and their teams that, hey, this is still another level of ball that nobody else can really get to aside from maybe a couple teams in the Big Ten. And given what the results we've had this year, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand why or how you can come to that conclusion. It seems like the type of year where you want the 12, teams with the best records that you can find and then let them battle it out, and it might be more random than we've seen in the past.
I just think that the record does have to mean something. I know you get into strength of schedule, but I think strength of schedule should come into it maybe after the overall record. Like, when you're, we have two teams that, like, we have several teams.
Yeah, we have two lost teams or something.
We have these teams that all have the same record. Let's compare them now, as opposed to when you've got 9-3 and 10-2. Like, I mean, maybe not a full bonus point for a 9-3 or 10-2 over a 9-3, but like something has to be, to me, considered for that, because and then, like, they're trying to weight strength. Like, they selectively look at what they want to look at, and that, like, Alabama being in the playoff, like, in the picture, I think is what's complicating all of it. And if Alabama was not in this right now, if it was just based on, like, it was, Arizona's 10th, whoever is 11th, and then somebody's 12th, and that 12th person was somebody who was also playing for a conference title, like, say it was Iowa State, then the Big 12's only getting one team in, but at least they're giving you a shot of here's what's going to happen, and maybe an accurate picture.
Right.
And Iowa State has losses to an 8-4. They lost to Texas Tech, who's 8-4, and they lost to Kansas, and so that's who's 5-7. All right. Well, Oklahoma and Vanderbilt are both 6-6. So, you're like I've seen Kansas play enough to where I know that Kansas,
that's a team that's probably better than their record.
Yeah, that was a little bit better than the record, and that if you said, okay, well, how would they do against Oklahoma and Vanderbilt? Probably about the same as Bama did. Down to it, and of course Oklahoma thumped them.
Right,
and that game wasn't.
It wasn't close. No.
Wasn't close.
It was only close because Oklahoma can't score. I mean, it was more like a 40-15 type of game, but it was just
24-3, which is like that was a lot. Like when they got in, they're like, "Coach, I didn't know we could count that high." And that's coming from a joke from someone who my team couldn't count to 21 this year. Mm-hmm. They could count to 20 at the beginning of the season, and then like that was it. The most they did. So.
All that being said, let me look at the camera here. If Clemson wins Saturday, then I need some SEC bias in my life. Okay? Give me the Crimson Tide over SMU. You're telling me it's a national nightmare. It might not be to the rest of the nation, but it is to me. So we can't have this happen. I'm rolling my guy Dabo. He's a good man. He's a great Bible teacher. He's built his team the right way. He's not interested in the portal. He's not interested in paying these guys. And the only portal he's interested in is the one from darkness to light, praise the Lord. Clemson's got 3 losses. You know who else has been denied 3 times, Paul, or was?
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus Cristo. Yeah.
You following me?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, SMU, school that did it the wrong way, and now they're back in it because we're saying the wrong way is the right way. Well, I'm here for some good American family values. Give me the Clemson Tigers to win, and then we get rid of that other team. How are they doing this? I don't understand.
Look, you guys were in the playoff, in the 4-team playoff, much more difficult.
Good point, Paul.
Just a couple years ago.
Thank you.
But it did take a decade to get there. When
I
you
know,
joined a power conference, SMU kind of has done it in a year. And that is that the frustration? Not that necessarily they're making it.
They never won the American. They couldn't overtake like Cincinnati and USF.
You've got Paul
CF,
out here laughing like the Count in Sesame Street.
But
yeah.
I guess they won the American their last year
Stephen
there.
Wright.
They won the American their last year there, but they lost to like Boston College in the Pinstripe Bowl. And we all laughed at them because we were like, ha, that's a taste of your life in the ACC. And then they made me look like a fool.
Yeah, we've talked about before, I went to the game this year when they played SMU, and it did not feel like there's a time where you could have gone to a game there and it felt very moribund and like, oh, this is sad.
Right.
But when they, flip the rules and all these people are like, oh, well, now we can do this again. We can do it the way that we know how to do it. Like, we've not been able to spend this money for so long, and it's just sitting here. And it was the only thing that gave me joy. So now, here.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, whatever we need to do. Trevor Lawrence, I know he's not in the best headspace right now, but if he can suit up this weekend, throw the ball around a little bit for the Tigers, whatever needs to happen for Clemson to win, that's what I'm all about.
Yeah.
And then let's get the SEC bias in there. So, thank you, everyone.
Stephen, I can't say that I'm advocating for. I agree with you there. I think it would be good for America if Clemson wasn't involved in this thing at all. So,
well, we agree to disagree. So.
Yeah,
I'm rooting for the pesky underdog, the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah. What's funny about Dabo is that he's not completely wrong about the way he builds the roster.
No, he's not.
He's just a little bit wrong, but that little bit is those 3 games that you're losing. Like, that's the difference. When Georgia beat you so bad, it's because they went out and got, guys to fill the spots. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, well, these guys will be good eventually. Yeah, but then the guys that are good are going to be gone. You only have them for 4 or 5 years, man. Especially Clemson, you have him for 3. Like, if you're getting the guys you want, you don't have him for that long. If he just went out, and here's the other thing that I don't think that has ever even occurred to him. Like, you have not had a good kicker there in 10 years. Go get a kicker.
Go get one, yeah.
Like, if you just went and got a kicker, they would be about 5 games better than they were over the last couple years. Like, some of those losses have been gone because they didn't have a kicker. Last year in particular, there's 3 games you'd have won if he had a kicker.
It seems like he thinks he's going to get a bigger trophy if he does it his way, and it's just not true. You know, like, this is not. It's okay, and if your philosophy is I want to do this with players to the high school ranks and I want to develop them through my program and build a family environment, that's all fine. You can still do that, but like you said, like if you need a corner and you look at your roster and you're like, my young guys, I don't feel like they're ready. Well, just go get a corner. Like they're going to want to come play at Clemson. Like, go find one. If you need a wide receiver or quarterback, go get one. And you can still build your roster the traditional way. Just get a little help here and there.
Look, if you lose 5 guys, and look, they have the 105 roster limit coming, all that thing they have to figure out. But if you get 5 transfers and you feel good about that, if you get a kicker, a wide receiver, a guard, and 2 defensive players that can be starters for you at Clemson, then that's good, you know. But I don't think that's going to happen because now he's dug in.
I mean, he's painted himself in an imaginary corner of his own doing.
Yeah.
So
I'm still not doing it. No. No, don't need to. All these guys are in the portal from high school. Real quote. Okay. No.
Clever, Dabo. Clever.
There you go. We're built in God's name, image, and likeness. Okay. Or God be like, I would pick different colors than orange and purple together. They seem to clash, but you know.
Can I ask you one more? Do we need to go to break, or can I ask you another
question? No, ask me one more question.
Okay. Do you have a biggest sign for, as a Florida State fan? Do you have a biggest what if in recruiting, like a guy that you thought you were going to get, and maybe at the last minute you didn't, and you're like, man, if we landed that dude, it would have gone so differently.
Yeah, would you like to know who it is?
Yeah.
Travis freaking Hunter!
Oh, I forgot about that. I didn't even realize that when I said it.
Yeah. No.
Well, I mean, you can't compete with Jackson State, buddy.
Yeah. Nope.
Particularly this year?
I wasn't believing it. Like, when it was first happening, I was like, oh, this is just there's a little bit of posturing here. Like, this is Dion, mad about not getting the FSU job instead of Norvell and kind of doing that. But ultimately, he's going to be like, well, I can't go to Jackson State.
Right.
I gotta make sure, we don't know what's going to happen with you and this and all that. But no, he did. And it worked out really well for him.
Happy for him.
In pretty much every regard. And, what
are you going to do?
Yep. So, yeah, that one stings. That one stings a lot. That one really stings a lot. Here's the thing. Before the what if, to me, was Joe Mauer. Because Joe Mauer was the number 1 quarterback, one of the number 1 quarterbacks in the country. He came to the same high school as Chris Weinke did in Minneapolis. And then when he got drafted by the Twins with the 4th or 5th pick in the draft, it's like, well, Joe Mauer's not going to come here. But you're like, hell, we'll be fine. And then it was, what I thought were the dark times, but was not the dark times.
Just a preview.
Here's the thing. Right now at 2-10, this is a full-on migraine that might be a stroke or something, or an aneurysm. Back then, I just had a tension headache that I could have taken a couple of leave and been like, okay, well, this is, I don't like this, but it's fine.
Part of the reason I ask is because I feel like...
Do you have one?
I feel like most TCU fans would say Jamar Chase. There was a time, allegedly, where he was ready to commit. Yeah, Garrett, I see you poking around there. There was a time, allegedly, where he was ready to commit to TCU on some NFL network program, but schedule got messed up. He got bumped, and then he ended up at LSU. Now, that one to me is a little weird because, one, I think he probably would have ended up at LSU anyway, but also he would have been great at TCU, but TCU's had their fair share of good receivers. That hasn't exactly been a position where they've lacked talent. But the one that is in my mind actually involves your radio show because
Billings.
Andrew Billings was supposedly like signed, sealed, delivered to TCU, and then he went on the air with you and Smokey and announced that he was going to go to Baylor instead. And apparently, famously, Jeremy Clark, the great recruiting reporter at TCU, got a text from a TCU staffer that just said, "Mama won." So, guess she wanted him to stay in Waco, and he did pretty well.
Mr. and Mrs. Billings are good friends of mine. I love the Billings family, and when I tell you that he did not know until he walked in the room
what he was going to do.
What he was going to do. That's a very true story. Like his parents. Honestly, I think they should like do a YouTube series on this is how you let your 5-star kid get recruited, because again, like Andrew is, he's a very quiet kid. He's not. I wouldn't call him shy, but he's a little reserved. You know, he's not a shy kid, but he's reserved. He's a serious guy. You know. Huge heart, like just a great guy. But they also knew that this is the first time in his life where he's going to go somewhere and people are going to roll out the red carpet in a way that like you can't even imagine. Like when you're one of the top defensive tackle recruits in the country, he was like the 3rd or 4th, like in the country. And when you're going to roll it out like that, a 17-year-old kid is going to think every of those 5 visits he goes to
is the best.
This place loves me. This is the best. I mean, like, look at the food we ate and look at the, like all this thing, they did this and like, this was all here. So they would not let him recruit. And they told every coach he is not going to commit until signing day, and he's not going to commit anywhere on campus. So it would be in your best interest not to really push that when you talk to him, because we're not going to do that because we want him to have some perspective. So waiting until signing day is one thing, but I mean that the calendar is your own. But like if you say, look, I want to know by November 1st where I'm going, and by November 1st I'm going to say it, I'm going to shut it down, then that's fine. Take all your visits and make your decision on November 1st, and then do that. That's what they wanted. Like, we're going to take in all the information that we want to take in, then we're going to go through it and figure it out, and on the day he's going to pick what's best for him.
Yeah.
And it wound up being Baylor and not TCU, and Baylor thought for sure he was going to TCU. For sure that he was going to TCU. And, thought, he gets to be out of town, but not all that far away. He can come here, Gary's a better defensive mind and all these different, he'll be perfect in the system, which, yes, he would have.
Yeah, he would have been.
He would have been perfect in the system, but nope.
He ended up staying home.
Yeah. And if not for, I think it was Brian Norwood. Or maybe, I think it was Brian Norwood. Phil Bennett walked into the office and told him, like, why are you listening to that? Why do you just want to hear it? We know he's going to TCU. And he's like, look, I just have to hear it from him. And then he said, I'm committing to Baylor. And then, like, the whole office, like, erupted with glee.
Well, good for them.
Yeah. Then, after that, I went directly home and had the worst stomach bug because I had the worst stomach bug of my life. That's the thing I remember at that day. I picked up a stomach bug when we were in New Orleans at the Super Bowl. I know exactly where and exactly how. I know.
Don't take shots off the street in Bourbon Street, friends.
Also from,
especially maybe not directly from someone's mouth.
That's what I did. Craig, here's Craig. Let me give you Craig's look. Craig,
Craig's the person that's seen some things too.
Like, oh.
Not like a homeschooled kid.
Yeah, it was like, oh man. And then I thought, well, that's the dumbest thing that's going to happen. Then we ran into Q, and that was, at least I was 10th on the list.
Was that the year he blacked out?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The power went out, and so did Q.
Yeah, the power went out in the Super Bowl. Q didn't know.
He didn't know. He's like, where's Janet? Or Beyonce. Where's Beyonce?
He woke up.
Beyonce. We watched her. You were all excited about it. No. That didn't happen. But yeah, no, I was really sick. Smokey was so locked in on Billings all day long, he couldn't think about anything else. So the whole day I was like throwing out, it was, one of those.
Yeah.
It was 2 ways, all day long, just sick as a dog. But it's signing day. I had to be there. I had no color in my skin. And so Billings gets done, and Butch turns to me and goes, "Damn, Chop, you look like shit." And I said, "Yeah, I feel like that." And then Smokey goes, "Oh man, you have no color in your face." I was like, "Yeah, I've been throwing up all day." He goes, "Have you?" I'm like, "The bathroom is right next to our office. How did you not hear me rah, all day long?"
Yeah,
that's how
I did in the trash can 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. You notice the beads of sweat falling off me and my shirt's I'm disheveled. I don't feel good. I'm the whole time Andrew's talking, I'm just say, stop asking him questions, or you just let him say what he's going to say. I don't know if this interview goes 10 minutes. I don't think I'm going to have to knock
exit.
I'm going to have to knock this guy out of the way, and I don't think I can do that because I am not the number one defensive tackle in Texas. I'm not the state record powerlifting holder. I don't have that distinction. When we come back, let's talk about signing day. The wait is a lot less now because this is not binding for any more than a minute anymore. We don't know who's going to, if you look at the majority of the transfer portal that's already been entered so far are guys who are redshirt freshmen and sophomores who were 4-star prospects or something like that and just haven't played at the place that they committed yet. So that's where you kind of look well, what does this matter? Right now, this is one of those things. You're buying stock and seeing if it pays off. That's what you're doing. We'll talk about that next. This is 365 Sports.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside Stephen Simcox of Locked On Horned Frogs. Stephen, it is National Signing Day. And look, the rich are getting richer as they do on National Signing Day. Texas is killing it, and they'll continue to kill it. A&M's killing it. The SEC's doing well. I think the story of signing day, though, to me is Billy Napier and the Florida Gators and what they've been able to do in the last month. And I don't think it has anything to do with Billy Napier at all, necessarily. I think it has everything to do with DJ Lagway and the fact that if you're a receiver, a running back, an offensive lineman, and you want to go to a place where you're well, I'm going to play with a dude who's legit,
right?
Like DJ Lagway. And it cannot be overstated the draw of a QB like that. I can give you 100 examples now, whether it's modern day Jordan Travis or any kind of big time quarterback that, is in kind of their last year or so. And then you've got, the Keon Colemans and people of the world hey, that team looks pretty good. The quarterback's amazing. I'm going to go play for him with him. Or, whether it was, RG3 played his true freshman year, and then all of a sudden people are that guy's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty dynamic.
I'd like to play with so the coach doesn't have to sell hey, when we find a quarterback, he's gonna get the ball to you. It's no, I've watched that guy. He's badass, and that's what's going on with DJ Lagway right now. Is that he hasn't even really played all that much, but
he's shown some great things.
Well, look. They were 4-1 with him as the starter when he finished the game. So the only one they lost was Georgia, I think. Georgia, right. He didn't play that game. But yeah, they're 4-1 when he was the starter when he finished the game. And I feel like I'm personally responsible for this because I'm one of the many people who was like yelling at Billy Napier. Like, look, man, Graham Mertz, like, I get that you're loyal to him.
You know what you got there, though.
But he is net zero. Mm-hmm. He's not going to lose the game for you, but he's also not going to win it. Mm-hmm. Like, in no way is he going to win the game for you. That's not going to happen. And then when that flipped, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. You know, DJ Lagway's probably not going to lose the game for you either. Maybe a little bit more likely because he's a little more risk adverse because he's a younger player. But also he's going to go and win some games for you. Yeah. It's where 3 minutes left, you need a touchdown, and you're down by 8, and you need a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Graham Mertz is not getting you both of those things. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to happen. So,
and we'll see it in the portal too when it opens up. Mm-hmm. That I mean, you're going to have playmakers that are like, yeah, I want to go play with that guy. But
yeah,
I think it's a good combination of Langway. Obviously, Florida's had funds, like they've got money to spend, and you know, I mean, we sort of all. Nobody really laughed. I think it was kind of like, okay, that makes sense. But they stuck with Billy Napier. There is something to be said about stability. Like you said, I don't think he's moving the needle. Like, I'm not sure he's showing up in people's houses like, hey, come play with me. But at least they're like, okay, well, they've made some commitment to him. I know I can be here for a year. He'll be here. And so we move that way. And I know who my coach is going to be temporarily, which in this sport now is a pretty big deal. So all those things have culminated in them suddenly bouncing back. It's a heck of a story because, I mean, they were supposed to be in the basement of the SEC, and not that they had an amazing season, but there's certainly a lot more promise there than we expected before the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that to me has been the most like surprising thing. And you know, you can go to On3 or 24/7 and look at the recruiting rankings and all that, but you know, it doesn't matter as much as it used to because all this thing, like, look at Jimbo Fisher's had the number 1 class. Mm-hmm. And then half those guys didn't even make it
through the year. Yeah.
Through the year. Yeah. And then about another, you know, a half of that, like a quarter of them just transferred anyway. Now, I would tell you that the heart of A&M's team right now and the best talent they have are the last two Jimbo Fisher classes that were really good. But he wasn't winning with those guys. Like he was impeding his own success. And so, but, you know, number 1 class, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean now if, you know, all it takes is one thing to happen and then, you know, that's over, right? So Texas has Texas has the number 1 class right now because of 2 factors. Steve Sarkisian, who's done a really good job at building that program and learning that, and Arch Manning. I mean, we've seen enough of Arch Manning playing in this offense where it's like, oh, okay, I want to go be part of that. I want to go be part of the defense. Pete Kwiatkowski, if I want to get to the NFL right now, I kind of want to go play for Pete Kwiatkowski, which was not the case for a long time with the Longhorns. But that's why. Like, those 2 factors are why they can lock up the number 1 class. Georgia at number 2, really, they have a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to quarterback. But you have to trust in Kirby Smart a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, it's
but, I mean, even if you're talking about, like, the top classes, a handful of those guys are going to – you know, play right away. The majority of them, you're trying to kind of build on something and develop them. And it's like you said before we went to break, Paul. So many of these big name players. I mean, for instance, like Micah Hudson at Tech. That was the biggest recruit maybe in that school's history from a ratings perspective, and it was a huge win for Joe McGuire. And they're all excited about it. And they got 1 year of him and not even on the field that much, and now he's hitting the portal. So it's so tough to like get invested in these players and, you know, make all these proclamations and kind of project where they're going to go when you just don't know. There's so many factors on whether they get on the field or not, and that plays into if you can keep them around and keep them staying the course, you know, with the team. So it's not what it used to be. It's still a lot of fun, and I do think with the roster limits now, the classes are getting bigger, and you're seeing coaches say, like, all right, I'm just going to sign as much talent as I can, and I'm doing that with the expectation that we're probably going to lose a good number of these guys.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to hit on, you know, 10 to 12 of them hitting the transfer portal and build a good team moving forward.
Yeah, and you know, like there are things on shit like the modern era has changed a little bit in that, you know, there are guys like, look, Julian Humphrey from Georgia started 10 games this year. He's in the portal. You know, he's decided he wants to go somewhere. But, you know, there were guys who used to just stay at Alabama or Georgia forever because, like, well, it's not going to be better, and their options were limited. Now that their options aren't limited, if you're a redshirt freshman and didn't play or didn't get close, and there's 3 other redshirt freshmen who are above you, you're leaving. You're going to leave, and you're going to go play at a school that might even play Alabama. Like, you might wind up at South Carolina or Ole Miss or somewhere like that, and then actually play and help maybe beat Alabama because they just don't have this revolving door of like, oh, look, you know, our 3 5-star guys got hurt. Well, this is the worst of the 3, but he's still better than your guy who's got a lot of heart.
Yeah.
You know, like
he's still better than your starting safety or whatever, right?
Yeah.
No, it is. It's a different world in that regard. But and then, you know, signing, like the early signing day has changed things so much too, and so many guys enroll early. But yeah, I mean, it's still a fun time. You see a lot of these flips happen now in the days leading up to the signing day itself. So I don't feel like we have the fireworks of the hat dance on ESPNU and that type of thing like we used to, because there's just so many players that are getting locked in early, and maybe they change their mind, but typically it's going to be that announcement's going to be made before we get here, where everybody's getting ready to sign the dotted line in the morning and faxing the paperwork and get after it.
Yep. When we come back, the wheel returns after several weeks. And, Stephen, you'll have to keep it closer to you because this new setup here.
I know.
So you'll just have to spin
We're so
it.
far away.
Yeah. You spin it. I've got the ones right here. And so
we're talking about best true freshman seasons ever.
Yes.
In honor of signing day. We just talked about how they don't make an impact as much anymore. And now we're going to talk about best true freshman seasons ever.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, but those are the guys. Those are the guys that matter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, when we come back, the wheel. I'm Paul Catalina. He's Stephen Simcox. This is the triple option on 365 Sports and our own damn channel.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports fans. Join Fantasy Sports EVO and experience the evolution.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside Stephen Simcox and the wheel, the Wednesday Wheel of Wonder.
Wonder? Whimsy?
Whimsy and wonder.
All the W words?
Yes. It belongs among the wildflowers. So. Okay, Stephen. Best true freshman seasons of all time.
All time. You ready to wheel it up?
Yes.
Adrian Peterson, 2004.
Oh, well, I didn't think that we would get to the top of the list so fast. But there are 2 players in the running for this on this list to me, and he's number 1. And the next one, number 1 and number 2 are obvious to me. The rest I'm gonna have to really think about. But to me, and maybe it's a little bit of more recency bias, but the most dominant I've ever seen a freshman, and should have won the Heisman Trophy, but they had this stupid freshmen can't win it. Then I know Tebow won it in 2004, and deservedly so. I mean, he won it, but if you flip it, if Tebow was a freshman and Peterson was a sophomore, then Peterson would have won it. Like, that was the criteria.
Yeah.
You know, for then until Johnny Manziel won it and Jameis Winston won it. Like, you know, like there was no like, oh, there's no way somebody who's a freshman is going to win this award. But Adrian Peterson, to me, has the biggest beef about not winning the Heisman of anybody maybe ever.
Do I remember right that there was a push? I don't know if it was from his camp, but there was like a thought about this dude could play in the NFL. Like
Right now. Yeah,
now.
He wasn't that like – there's another guy on this list who very much was, like right before then.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was – I think there was a push from people like, well, why, you know, he should be allowed to play in the NFL right now, which, again, we'll spin the wheel. We'll get to some other history on this. But, yeah, these are all people who kind of push that like, well, maybe should you be able to go now if you're ready? But ultimately, the NFL does not want that because then they're going to turn in the NBA and then you're going to have to save your, you know, you have to spend money to save yourself from yourself when you could have just been like, all right, you know. There are a lot of guys that drafted in the NBA. Like, if you just picked a 3-year starter that's going to be a power forward and get 12 rebounds and 15 points for you on a good day, you'd win more games than, like, sitting a guy until he's 24.
Yeah.
You know, but that's not how it works. You know, everybody's drafting on potential and not necessarily that, like when you draft a guy who's played 1 year of college basketball.
Right, it's like this guy's 19. We're
and
banking
shot
this
36%, but you can see he could shoot 50% if
you
only you gave him the training. So
no, it's a very different world in the NBA draft.
yeah.
All right,
So,
AP or AD.
yeah, 80 number 1.
Oh, Ryan Williams this year, 2024.
Especially given that he's on like a veteran-laden team, and he's by far the best wide receiver they have. I mean, there's a lot of guys who've played a lot. Look, one of the guys is in the portal, Kobe Prentice, was a really high-ranked receiver just a couple of years ago, and Ryan Williams darted past him on the depth chart. So let's put him at 8.
Okay.
And like he didn't affect like the Heisman race or the national title race really all that. Oh, I mean, he might. But they got 3 losses, so let's not.
Yeah. There was a time where it looked like he would.
Yeah.
You know, after that Georgia game, it felt like, oh man, this guy's going to be the talk of the country. But he's not faded. I mean, he's still having a really good year, but the conversation around him has faded a little bit as the years progressed.
Yep, absolutely.
Ron Dane, 1996.
Great year, unbelievable freshman year in 96 for Ron Dane. Eventually won the Heisman Trophy because Peter Warrick got suspended. Wouldn't have won it if Peter Warrick hadn't gone to Dillard's. This is a scientific fact, right? Like, this is accepted as true now.
Yes.
Like, the theory of relativity has been proven. Like, we just still call it the theory of relativity. Like, this is the Warrick hypothesis. It's on the Dillard's bell curve, whatever, you know. But, yeah, he was great. I'm still going to I'll put him at 10.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have 1, 8, and 10. Emery, is there a pen over there? Okay.
Yeah, I should have brought a pen so you can mark these down.
Yeah.
We got 1, 8, and 10 filled out there.
1, 8, and 10.
Jalen Hurts, 2016.
Well, let's put him at. They won in 2016, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's put him at 5. Let's go ahead and put him at 5. Yeah, because that was. I mean, look, he stepped in, he played great, but he also stepped into a team that was
loaded.
Yeah, he didn't have to be as like he could have been a little less great than he was, and still won.
Yeah,
but yeah, he was great.
No, he was outstanding. I mean, he was mainly just like. Not just, but he was a big time running threat that year.
Yeah.
They kept the ball on the ground with him a lot.
Yeah.
And he thrived in it. But yeah, what a weird career he had.
Oh, I know. And that's
still kind of an odd career in some ways, but
I honestly I think that Jalen Hurts' only problem is his head coach. I think that's the only problem. Like, the Philly fans don't even really like him all that much. And
No, because he yells at him all the time.
yeah, I mean, he's just mad. Like, he forgets where he is. Like, that's what it is. But, yeah, I mean, I'm other than the fact that he's a Philadelphia Eagle, and I find that quality in a person repellent.
Agree. Yeah. Strong agree.
But other than that, I'm a huge Jalen Hurts fan. Mm-hmm. Always have been, always will be. I have to pretend that, like, he's my fantasy quarterback, and I'm happy about that. And I have to pretend like I'm upset when he has a good game this year, and I'm really not.
1-8, 10-5.
Yeah.
Let's go Trevor Lawrence.
6. I might be a little biased there. I'm going to put him at 6. He's very good, though. He's very, very good.
I remember he bursted on the scene in that A&M game at Kyle Field.
Mm-hmm.
He stepped in and threw a couple touchdown passes. And, I mean, that was obviously, it typically is, but that was an insane, even more so than usual, insane environment for the Aggies that night.
Both he and Deshaun Watson had to, because Dabo did not want to play a true freshman. Mm-hmm. He just didn't want to do it. He, it's old school. You don't want to play a true freshman. And both of them forced their way into the lineup where it's like, buddy, you got to,
you're going to have to make it, you're going to have to make an exception here.
Now, Trevor Lawrence was easier for him because Deshaun Watson had come before, and Clemson had lost games because they were, rotating him in and out. Didn't want to give him too much too fast. You're come DJ Lagway and Graham Mertz. Okay, do you want a chance to, beat these guys, or do you want a chance to almost beat these guys and go, what could we have done differently? Oh, put a dynamic athlete in there.
Who was the QB he pushed out? Garrett, do you remember?
I mean, DJ Uiagalelei? Oh. Deshaun Watson?
No. He pushed, he was a true freshman. He pushed the incumbent out, and that was, the first time we saw, because that guy.
Kelly Bryant?
Yes, Kelly Bryant. Because he mid-season was like, hey, I'm going to redshirt and transfer, which now is commonplace. But at the time, it was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big story.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Quinn Ewers.
All right, so we have 1, 5, 6, 8, and 10.
Yes. Herschel Walker, 1980.
Number 2. Look, he's the one who started the discussion. Used to, underclassmen couldn't come out.
Yeah.
And then because of Herschel Walker, the USFL, and the fact that the Cowboys had a backdoor deal for him anyway, Gil Brandt had one. Gil Brandt, it was against the rules. Gil Brandt became a good friend of mine, and I talked to him all the time. And I remember asking, I read it in Jeff Pearlman's book, Football for a Buck, which is absolutely fantastic, and everybody should read it, about the USFL. I asked him about the story that he told in it. He's like, yeah, he took out he gave me 10 other details. I'm like, yeah, no, we were ready to do this, and Herschel's going to leave school, and the rules were the minute he turned 19 or whatever, or 20, we could sign him, and his birthday is here. And I was like, damn, Gil, you're a gangster. Yeah, everybody talks about how Bill Belichick knew every rule and how to exploit it and how to get right up against the line. Well, Bill Belichick learned it all from Gil Brandt. He knew that okay, who's the guy who knows everything? It was Gil Brandt. And Gil Brandt's the reason now that you have to watch a guy leave early. That's what you had to do. It was him because the NFL knew that he was going to keep pushing it, and that he'd figured out, they knew he was going to figure out the loophole. The other thing he was going to do was, fine, go play for Donald Trump and the Generals, but when that league falls apart, you're going to be here anyway. Mm-hmm. So.
Interesting. That's a cool story.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go Jonathan Taylor, 2017.
11. It was fine. Didn't affect the national championship race, but it was an excellent season. He's a fine player. Mm-hmm. Wisconsin running backs just don't really.
Yeah, there's a boatload of them.
Yeah, it's just it's hard to distinguish them, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for Barry Alvarez and the subsequent coaches in the program, the rushing, prowess that they built. But, it's just kind of like a grilled cheese sandwich where you kind of had one, you had them all, right? Occasionally you get a grilled cheese sandwich that's like unique. It's got some fancy cheese on it, like the one from Chef. It was really good. But most of the time, it's 2 pieces of white bread and American cheese.
I went to a gourmet, like, grilled cheese sandwich place in Anchorage, Alaska, and it was like a 10-hour flight, and so I hadn't eaten anything that day. So to this day, it's still one of the best meals I've ever had. But I understand what you're saying. It was just because I was so hungry that probably anything would have been good. But, yeah, Wisconsin running backs, they're a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Jamil Holloway.
3. He was fantastic. I think that was Barry Switzer's opus of that offense and what they did. So, yeah, I would put him at 3.
We'll start kind of going rapid fire through these. Mike Williams, USC.
12. I'll put him at 12. He had a great season, and then he was the one who was like, I should be able to go to the NFL right now. And then they fought, and he didn't.
Didn't you? Didn't know it. Ed Oliver, 2016.
9. Fantastic. I love defensive tackles. I love Ed Oliver, but,
That was like peak Tom Herman, man.
Yeah.
That was like when Tom Herman was the dude.
Yeah.
Now he's fired from FAU.
Yeah.
Phillip Rivers, 2000. I think 7 and 6 are available.
Phillip Rivers is no. Was a true freshman in 2000, was I guess he was. Let's give him 6.
Okay.
Give him 6.
And then Derek Stingley Jr. in 2019.
So he would be 7.
7.
Yeah. He would be 7. He was legit. Is Derek Stingley too low?
Yeah, he's too low. Don't watch him lock up C.D. Lamb in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty good corner.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess he maybe wasn't as pivotal to the.
I tried to stick with
because they won the national championship that
Yeah.
year, so
they did, but that team was loaded.
yeah, I see
Loaded.
he falls into he was a true freshman. Well, that makes it even better, but
Right.
and then the other thing is he's covering Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase in practice every single day, so he locked up CeeDee Lamb, which. I mean, those are the only if you asked me 2 wide receivers I would take over CeeDee Lamb, those are the only 2. Mm-hmm. Those are the only 2 that I would be like, look, if you want me to take somebody over CeeDee Lamb, it's got to be Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Outside of that, no, CeeDee Lamb
Is the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. There you have it, the Wednesday Wheel of Whimsy. We have Peyton Sorcher coming up right now on rankingsrightnow.com. He's our Chiefs rankings officer. He's going to go through all of it when it comes to what that meant last night. No, just go right to it, Jack. And so he's going to, especially the Big 12 versus ACC and where those things lie. So you get to spend 5 minutes with him. We've got a huge show coming up for you today. I love it when we have new coaches on the show, and we do today in Scott Abel, the new Rice coach. And we'll have him right after. We're very Rice heavy because right before that, we'll have Taylor McCarg, former Rice quarterback and college football analyst with us. Greg Powers of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. He's the director of recruiting. Graham Coffey of Dog Central talking Georgia. Zach Gelb in Infinity Sports Network. And if we get to a pod today, it will be the Big 12 South. My top 5 and a lot to get to. This is the Triple Option. See you on 365 Sports in an hour.
Everyone, Chief Rankings Officer Peyton Sorcher here on the Triple Option with Paul Catalina. We got our final regular season rankings release from the playoff committee, but things were shaky, right? We all had all of our big suspicions on where South Carolina would be, where would Alabama be, where would Miami be, all these different types of questions. But now we need to shift our focus and we need to look and see in different context scenarios, what would happen if different college football championships were to flip? If we see a Boise State lose, if we see a Miami lose, what are we going to see in these different scenarios? So let me go ahead and reset all of the simulations and go look at where currently, according to rankingsrightnow.com, which is a machine learning algorithm that predicts where the college football playoff committee is going to be ranking each team. It's free for everyone. Create a login for anyone who wants to play around with this what if simulation tool like I'm about to. But here are the projected movements of the rankings that we see. In this context scenario, it looks like all the way down to 12 is where the playoff committee is going to be. There's no group of 5 with Boise State still being in there. But as of right now, we have these different games ending up being the winners of each conference championship. We have Oregon over Penn State, Texas over Georgia, SMU over Clemson, Boise State over UNLV, Arizona State over Iowa State, and Tulane over Army. Those are the big conference championship games that we need to keep into account. All right. Now, with that being said, there is a particular conference championship that is going to make things uber complicated, and that is the ACC championship game. Clemson is in the ACC championship game because Miami lost to Syracuse last weekend. So we have SMU and Clemson. SMU with the projected winner. Clemson sitting currently at number 17, projected to drop down to number 21 after a loss to SMU. But what if we change that outcome? Let's say it's a close one. Let's say Clemson 30, SMU 29. If we run the rankings right now simulation tool to see what the rankings would be in this situation, things get very complicated. We have SMU dropping down to number 13 in the rankings after that kind of loss. Now, let's just say this is a predictive algorithm. We can move things around a little bit. We're trying to just get a little bit of insights into what the selection committee might do. Let's say they decide to keep SMU above Miami because Miami did not play in this championship game. SMU does play in the championship game. We're not going to punish them more than a team that has not played this weekend. So let's say SMU sits at number 12 in this scenario. However, Clemson is only predicted to move up 2 spots to number 15 with a win against SMU, right? This is on historical data of what has typically happened when these types of games have occurred. If you have Clemson that close to SMU and Miami, and they just won the conference championship, are you going to put them in the top 12? Are they still out? Or do you keep an SMU team over a Clemson team after Clemson just lost to South Carolina, after Clemson has had a couple of ups and downs, right? A loss to Louisville, right? Where we all thought they were dead in the water. SMU has only lost 1 game this year, and that was to BYU early in the season. They're on a meaningful winning streak. Do you keep them in the college football playoff after you just proved that, or after it was just proven that Clemson was going to overtake SMU? So this ACC final selection spot, and they're only going to get 1, right? There's no Arizona State winning. They're going to the playoff committee, you can only assume, is going to want a Big 12 champion and a ACC champion. And maybe not even a champion, but they want at least 1 team from each of those conferences to be represented, since it's just nothing but Big 10 and SEC schools at the current moment. They're going to want a little bit of range for all of the college football fandom to be invested in this game. So that's the big question now. Do you keep Clemson if they win this game? Do you keep SMU if they lose the game? What do you do with Miami? Is there any chance that Miami could sneak in because you're not going to keep a SMU and a Clemson, because both of them down the road have proven that they lost their last game of the year, even though Miami lost their last game of the year too. So Clemson has their chance now to really try and make a enormous migraine for the playoff committee on how they're going to handle the final 12th ranked spot. Because at the current moment, it looks like it's going to go to an ACC team, but which one is it going to be? Stick around. We're going to talk about it all week on the Triple Option with Paul Catalina on 365 Sports. There's so much to discuss. We only talked about this scenario. What happens if Oregon loses to Penn State? What happens if Boise State loses to UNLV? We're in a similar scenario. So much to talk about. All college football, all the time on the Triple Option with Paul Catalina. I am Chief Rankings Officer Peyton Swisher for rankingsrightnow.com.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports fans. Join Fantasy Sports EVO and experience the evolution.